This is Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and I'm delighted to welcome Will Forster, the MP for Woking. Welcome to the Guildford Dragon, Will.
Hello, Martin. Thanks for inviting me along to talk to you and communicate with Guildford Dragon readers.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to talk to you because you've recently been to Ukraine,
I
and
have, yes.
and so I was hoping you can tell us a bit about your visit and your impressions. What was the purpose of the visit?
So I went there along with several other MPs as part of a UK delegation to commemorate and support Ukraine on the third anniversary of the Russian invasion. I was invited by the Friends of Ukraine in UK because I've been quite outspoken on the conflict. I've been outspoken on it because it fundamentally affects our safety and our cost of living, our defence security here in the UK. But what's happening in Ukraine is heartbreaking from a local perspective as well. It really matters to me and us in Woking, but across Surrey. So many people have opened up their homes to house Ukrainian refugees. We've now got a flourishing Ukrainian community. We need to support them. Also, in between the town centre of Guildford and the town centre of Woking, just in my constituency, we've got Sutton Place, which
Yeah,
many people know as Paul Getty's old
yes,
property. That property used to be owned by a Russian oligarch
yes,
billionaire who was sanctioned following the
yes.
invasion of Russia of Ukraine. I think that property should be sold and the benefits of that used to support Ukraine. And for the first time ever, actually, a Conservative agreed with me. Dominic Raab, when he was Deputy Prime Minister and then Foreign Secretary, said the same thing, but did nothing about it. I'm pursuing the government to sell Sutton Place in my constituency, amongst other seized Russian assets, to really benefit and support Ukraine.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of sympathy for that point of view, Will. But can we get back to the actual your visit to Ukraine? So the purpose of it was moral support, and were you also fact finding?
So we were. We went to Kyiv to Freedom Square for the third anniversary. So it was an honor to take part in that service, standing behind President Zelensky and other world leaders to lay a candle and commemorate those that have lost their lives. I did go to the Ukrainian Parliament as part of that commemoration. Within 5 minutes of sitting down in the parliamentary chamber, the air raid siren went off and we were rushed down to their bunker. The night before, we had to spend a night in a shelter because of air raids. This is sadly a daily occurrence in Kyiv and across much of Ukraine.
Hmm.
The fact that Russia particularly targeted Kyiv on the day, during the day of the third anniversary, I think is disgusting. They're not allowing a country to mourn their dead in peace.
Hmm.
So to share that solidarity was and be there to support them, particularly with Donald Trump trying to pull the rug from the Ukrainians, is so important. But we did go out there to try to learn as much as we can. And there's some medical aid, there's some issues on drones that I'm happy to talk to you more about now.
Okay, but what I'd like to hear is what state, I mean, you've described the air raid threat, which I think most of us can imagine because of the regular reports we get of those and the drone attacks, etc. But do you get a sense that life is going on? And I mean, obviously it is going on, but how disrupted is it?
So we went to different parts of Ukraine. We went to Lviv, which is the main western city.
Yeah,
That city is operating in a relatively peaceful manner. They are bombed occasionally.
yeah.
They've been a big hub for refugees leaving. Uh, Kyiv is daily night raids, and the city you can visibly see the bomb damage. We did go to east of Kyiv, towards the front line and other communities, and that's where you see the devastation much more visibly. People are really threatened and fearful. What I would say is the Ukrainians are so resilient. Absolutely take my hat off to them. I don't think we in this country understand what they've been through for the last at least 3 years. The fact that they are that resilient is so impressive. I use example, their GDP, their economy is going to grow by about 5-6% this year. They've been invaded. They're under constant air attack. They're losing so many people to Russia, and yet their economy is growing because they're that strong and resilient. Our economy has been flatlining for years, and we've not got the same reason. So
No.
I'm so impressed and got a lot of love for the Ukrainian people.
And what was the Ukrainian reaction, the people of Ukraine, their reaction to you and your group?
So, despite what Donald Trump said in the Oval Office, the Ukrainians are hugely thankful that they're the support that they're getting from particularly the UK, but also across Europe. A lot of them do feel that this is part of a conflict that could really escalate,
Hmm.
and that we are allies, and together as Europe, we can and we should be able to beat Russia. Some of them are hopeful that Donald Trump calms down or is replaced in 4 years with a moderate, sensible president. Some do fear this is a turning point, that America is retrenching, why Europe is so important to work together.
But you were there before that rather disastrous meeting in the White House. So those views you were getting before that happened.
So a lot of Ukrainians have felt the writing on the wall as soon as Donald Trump was elected. They
Right.
feel he's far too close to Putin. And that is so sad, which is why it was so important for us to be there and show that support and solidarity.
Okay.
Um,
Going back to the day-to-day life in the Ukraine, and I understand what you're saying that in some, it depends on the region of the country you're in and probably how close you are to the front line. But where it's a bit back from the front line in Kiev and of course in the more western areas, are things like restaurants and shops open all the time?
so Kyiv, there is a curfew, quite a strong curfew. There are a lot of things that are closed. Towards the west, things are operating a lot more in a lot more normal fashion. So it depends where you are.
Okay.
When you are in Ukraine, you have several apps on your phone to warn you of air raids or other threats. Um, that that is something that people live with, and they adapt their lives to that. When I had to go to a bomb shelter the night before the third anniversary, by the time I and others had got to the shelter, a lot of people were already there. They'd assumed there would be one, and that's how they were spending their night.
So were you ever fearful when you were there that of the attacks near you?
I think you've got to say yes. Of course, you were fearful. Like there were bombing raids when we the night before the third anniversary, we had some of the most drone attacks Kyiv's seen for years. So it is really concerning. It is really concerning. We did see, and I've got photos of down drones and down missiles in the streets. It's something that people have grown to live with, and they shouldn't do. And far too many people are losing their lives. When Zelensky recently met European leaders, Russia deliberately targeted his hometown before that
Yes,
meeting.
I read that. Yes. And did you get a chance to meet President Zelensky?
I didn't shake his hand, but he was just in front of me, and we met some other world leaders as well.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving that update. And perhaps if you could send me some of those photos that you are able to share, we can add them to the report of this interview.
Happy to.
Yeah.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. So, what's your reaction to the latest political maneuvering around Ukraine? I mean, take from what you said, I suspect you're pretty shocked at what's happened in the White House a couple of weeks ago. But what are you hoping for now?
So I think pretty shocked is an understatement. I'm quite directly disgusted how America is treating
Yeah.
Ukraine, but it's actually beyond that. The Vice President Vance has been very insulting to the families of British and French war dead. NATO has invoked Article 5 once. We have collectively, as NATO, come to each other's aid. But when America called for that aid, and now they're very dismissive of that, and I think that's really insulting.
I
Um,
mean, yeah.
Russia's act.
Sorry,
Sorry, Martin.
I'm a veteran myself, and for someone to think that we haven't been involved in conflict in the last 40 years beggars belief, quite frankly.
It can be, and he's either ignorant or arrogant, and I'm not sure which is worse. Um, I hopefully this attitude can change, but I'm managing my expectations. I think we as Europe need to come together and support Ukraine. Collectively, we are really strong, and that is so important. And what I saw out in Ukraine is we have got people out there. We're learning lessons from Ukrainians. Yes, we need to support them, but they can support us as well.
Okay. And do you think the Prime Minister's doing a good job in handling the situation?
I do think Keir Starmer has done a really good job trying to bring Europe together over the last few weeks. What I would say is I think he is trying to be far too close to America and not realizing that they're pulling away.
Right.
So most of it, I'd be very supportive, but he's clearly not criticizing um, the US when clearly the facts have changed. As someone who is a passionate Liberal Democrat, believes in sort of my values and my politics, I think this is an issue that's so important that we work together on. I went to Ukraine as part of a cross-party delegation.
Hmm.
When I've spoken in the House of Commons on Ukraine and spoken to people during hustings during the election, I don't think you've been able to tell the difference between what I've said, what a Conservative said, and what a Labour
Hmm.
politician said. I think that's really important.
Yes.
On the way out of Ukraine, we had a night train, and Boris Johnson was on the night train with us. I don't have much respect for him, but on this issue, he's shown solidarity with the Ukrainians, and I think that's so important that all three political parties have come together on this.
Boris Johnson's company must have made at least a bit more entertaining, I suspect.
Um, I think so. We didn't have a party on the train
Oh,
with
right.
Boris
Okay.
Johnson. I think he's learned his lesson.
Yes.
Um, but but it's so important that we've all agreed because
The
this is
part.
an issue that does just
Yeah.
transcend politics, and there shouldn't be any difference. Ukrainians need that certainty, and when British troops get deployed, they need that certainty that a change of government won't mean that the orders are changed. I think that's really important.
Okay. Two more questions. Do you think the state visit should go ahead?
I do. I reluctantly do. I think it's important we use that state visit to get Donald Trump on side. Donald Trump seems so desperate to have a state visit to the UK, but I think we need to use that to ensure that he delivers what we want, which is he needs to change his rhetoric. But Ukraine and Europe need to be round that table. No deal is agreed without Ukraine being happy. What America has done recently, stopping military aid, stopping intelligence, is absolutely shocking.
Mhm.
And that needs to be reversed.
Okay. And finally, what can local people that are listening to this interview, or become aware of the Ukrainian situation, or are aware of the Ukrainian situation, what do you think they can best do to help?
So the main takeaway I had from my Ukrainian visit was on medical aid. Now, this is something I've raised with the government following my visit. Went to a hospital and I went to a rehabilitation centre in Ukraine. I met a lot of wounded veterans and serving veterans. I met one guy called Vladimir who has lost his leg. He's waiting for an artificial, a
Mm.
prosthetic leg. He's no longer in pain. When he gets that leg, he wants to go back in the front line. Other people who've lost limbs have already gone back on the front line, but there's that shortage of prosthetics. Hospital doctors told me about 25% of battle deaths are preventable, but there's a shortage of blood, particularly where towards the front line, but even back in the hospital. That is something that I want our government to support Ukraine more on blood and on prosthetics. And that's something we can, as individual people, whether it be blood drives or other things, they desperately need medical and hygiene product aid out in Ukraine. I helped unload a convoy, some of the supplies from the UK. People are being so generous in the UK, but we need to keep that up. And if anything, we need to give more. Hygiene products are one of the things they're really short of. It is not glamorous, but the reason why they've had to evacuate so many care homes in the eastern Ukraine, and now there aren't the social workers to look after older people, so they need more hygiene products.
Okay.
That is sort of a sad reality of what's happening on the ground. If anyone out there can donate these things, please do.
Well, if you have any email addresses or website links that we can include in the piece that you think people, if they want to, can contact and offer their assistance, please do.
But I will do, and it should be online when this video goes up.
Okay,
So
and
I would really appreciate if you could promote that and if people could donate.
definitely. And thank you very much for giving your time to giving this interesting your interesting experiences of your visit to Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for the interview. Take care.